This is just how crazy the hydro situation in Ontario has gotten. The Liberal government will now be paying natural gas producing power plants that they've signed contracts with to not produce energy, all while they continue to buy hydroelectric energy from Quebec under their plan to reduce emissions. Hydro is cleaner than natural gas, but that doesn't mean that it's the better option for consumers. Cutting energy production from natural gas plants down is pretty crazy in the first place because natural gas is one of the cheapest and cleanest burning fossil fuels out there. It's considered a transition fuel that's allowed the US power sector to decrease carbon dioxide emissions by 16% below 2005 levels. It produces 50% less carbon dioxide than coal and negligible amounts of things like sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, mercury, and particulates that contaminate the air. But that's not even the craziest part about this whole deal. They're still getting paid due to these contracts for not producing energy, like I mentioned. You see, the government signed all of these contracts with companies to produce energy, in many cases, for far above market rate pricing. And this is actually going to save money if these plants choose to produce energy only when it makes sense with market pricing. Ontario produces too much energy, though, which it must sell off, and the government is locked into contracts with energy producers and must pay the rate in which they've agreed upon. Oftentimes, they sell this excess energy to places like Michigan and New York as a result for much less than what they've originally paid for. So having these natural gas plants sit idle is going to save the government millions. Sounds great, right? Well, it's not, because the people of Ontario are still being saddled with the high cost of so-called green energy, energy that the Auditor General says costs Ontarians billions in unnecessary and added costs due to these outrageous contracts. Bottom line, the government is limiting natural gas plants and buying cleaner hydroelectric energy from Quebec, all while overproducing and selling off that excess at a lower cost. It's a tangled web, and it kind of reminds me of how Canada purchases foreign oil while selling our own off at a lower price to the United States. What does this all do? It makes energy more expensive for Canadians and makes the states more competitive because they buy our energy on the cheap. I've mentioned the energy poverty in Ontario. I've mentioned that people, especially those in rural areas, are paying devastating delivery charges, making them choose between food and heat, all at the expense of implementing a clearly unworkable green energy plan. This is how crazy the government is. They'd rather see people in the line at the food bank than provide them with cheap, clean energy sources like natural gas. They're just so desperate to make this plan work that they've ignored the actual desperation of human beings. So much for bleeding heart liberals. For the Rebel.media, I'm Holly Nicholas. Thanks so much for watching. Have you had a chance to sign our petition at stopthecarbontax.com? Sign today and let the government know that you're against this obvious cash grab.